My name is Ali. Today's date is March 1st, 2018, and I'm interviewing Dr. Sherif Attallah on the Ball State campus as part of the Virginia B. Ball Center Seminar, Muslims in Muncie. Sherif, thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and it sounds like a great project, and I'm happy to be part of this.
Our goal in this oral history project is to learn about your life and about your contributions toward building a community with fellow Muslims in Muncie, Indiana. I want to begin by asking you where and when you were born.
I was born in Egypt, in a city called Mahalla. It's north of Cairo, and that was 1976, July 1976.
So, could you tell me more about your parents and family? What were their names and occupations?
My father his name was Omar Attallah, and he was working in the government for the post office. And in Egypt, the post offices are part of the governmental like organization, big organization. And my mom, her name is Hikmat Abu Zahra, and she was working as secretary and financial controller for a school in an elementary school in Egypt. Yeah.
So, do you have any siblings?
I have one brother. He's 3 years older than me. His name is Muhammad, and he graduated from the medical school, but right now he's working in the training and development area. Yeah, and I have one younger sister. Her name is Hana, and she's a pharmacist.
So, you told me that you spent the first 25 years of your life in Cairo, Egypt.
Yes.
So, could you tell me more about your childhood and any distinctive memories you have of Cairo?
Well, there are a lot of memories for sure. Well, my family was I would say a middle class family in Egypt, in an area called Shoubra. And it was my childhood hood was a very, I would say, peaceful kind of. I was mainly interested in schools, studying, and I and the main things that I like, the main activities that I was doing was playing soccer with my friends. Um, and most of my time was oriented to, as I said, school, studying, interaction with the academic stuff. So I remember that I was good at schools. This is what I remember very well. And I used to be I used to score very high in most of my exams and grades, ranked first or second maximum in almost all the years that I had. Um, so socially, I was basically doing the sports, as I said, soccer, playing soccer, and some outings with my friends. Um, Other than this, we had a decent like social life. So we used to get together with the other families, whether relatives or friends, and these were very nice days when we get together outside or in the houses of any of us. So I do remember that we had decent social life, rich social life. Yeah.
So, speaking more about school in your childhood, can you tell me more about the school system in Egypt, like your primary and secondary schooling?
Well, we have a, I think it's similar to here, but the way they break it down, it's like 6 years. We call it primary, and then 3 years. It's like middle school, and then 3 years high school, and then if you graduate from the high school, you go for a college, or if you want to decide to work, you can start working. So I think it's very close to what's happening here in USA.
Yeah. So then, growing up then within the 70s and 80s in
Mhm.
Egypt, could you tell me more about that environment religiously and culturally?
Yeah, I do remember that in the 70s, of course, that was the end of one era, which was the president was called Al Sadat, and he was killed actually in 1979 or 1980, in that range, and he was killed by people who were in the army. And we found out, or the people in Egypt found out later, that it's that those people they have affiliation with Islamic militant groups. So they were having extremist ideologies, but they were in the army, like officers in the army. And this is the group that killed al-Sadat. As I said, 1979, 1980, and when he was killed, a new president took over. He was from the army as well. His name is Hosni Mubarak. He's a very famous. It's a very famous name because he ruled Egypt for more than 30 years. And what I remember very well is that in the beginning of his era or period, things were developing in I would say, the right direction, good direction, economically, socially. Things were changing in the good direction for the Egyptian people. However, things changed after this, and I do believe, especially when I grew up, I do believe in the statement that says absolute power corrupts. And this is what happened in Egypt, and unfortunately, this is what happened in other Middle East countries as well. So probably after 10 years of his regime, let's say, he started claiming that it's a democracy, but it turned out, or it changed afterwards, to complete autocracy, or what we call in the Middle East as fake democracy. They say that we have elections, but there are no elections. There are no real opposition. There is no real elections. So after 10 years of his regime, I remember like in the 1990s and afterwards, things started deteriorating. And that, I would say, the economical deterioration due to corruption affected every single element in our life. It affected the religious life. It affected the social life of people. It affected the way people behave. I mean, I used to remember that people had good notions about sticking to good morals, religious morals, or even general values. But when you put a lot of people under stress, economical stress, they kind of lose this. They lose this willingness to stick to the right morals and good morals. So I do remember starting seeing this kind of deterioration in the social life, economical life. I could see it in the streets, in the school, and that's in the 1990s, and it continued in the after 2000 as well. I think it got worse and worse with time. I do remember also that it was basically a dream for many young Egyptians to go out of Egypt. There is an exception. Like the highly educated people who can find good positions, good jobs, good salaries, they would stay. But majority of the young people, they were not at that category, and they were trying to find any reason to go out of Egypt. I do remember this as well, and I think this is what led to what we call the uprising in 2011, which is 31 years after Hosni Mubarak started his ruling period, or era. So things got to a very bad situation, to the extent that many Egyptians on 25th of January 2011, that was the date of the uprising, they went out to the streets protesting against Hosni Mubarak in big numbers, and that was the first time in the recent history of Egypt to have all these people in the streets saying no to the government, because it was an autocracy like any other Middle East country. And I can confirm right now, because I was in Egypt at that time, after I came back from Dubai. I can confirm that it was because of the number of people in the streets between 25 January and 28th of January. there were a lot of people in Tahrir Square and in other areas of Egypt, and that was the only reason why the army, which is basically the ruling party in Egypt, they accepted to oust Hosni Mubarak, or they accepted to respond to the calling of people and get rid of Hosni Mubarak. So that, I think, I know this is a lot of politics, but you cannot segregate politics from life. It's in countries like Egypt, where I came from, it's really affecting every single element. So what's happening politically had its implications on everything we had in Egypt. Yeah. So does this answer the question, do you think?
That's it.
Okay.
I'd say going back to then when you were younger, when Hosni Mubarak first took over, were there any direct effects on you and your family that you saw?
We were a middle class family, as I said. We were like any other family, struggling with needs. I'm not saying basic needs, because we could eat and drink and have our basic needs. Some other lower income families, they were struggling with basic needs. For us, we were not struggling with basic needs, but we were struggling with other needs. Needs that had to do with better level of education, more chances, or or better potential in exploring things in life. So yeah, of course it affected us, for sure.
I know you said your dad had a government job.
He had a government job, and government jobs in Egypt they are not highly paid. They are, as I said, they kind of put you in the middle class family when it comes to government jobs. Right now, things got worse, even worse, to the extent that government jobs would easily put you in the lower class families. Like financially and economically, they will put you in the lower class family, not even the middle class families. When you put a lot of stress for a very long time on a society or on a country, you would expect this to happen. There is a lot of power, there is a lot of money in a very small percentage of the population, and the rest of the society, they are struggling mainly.
Yeah. So speaking more to the opportunity of education for you, can you tell me more about your higher education, such as studying in Egypt and then later moving forward?
Yeah, as I said, I was good at schools for some reason, but I liked the science, math, and other subjects. And when I finished my high school, I was actually nominated for a very good for a prestigious scholarship in the American University in Cairo. And I would say that the American University in Cairo is the best university in Egypt. It is, I mean, by far, it's the kind of education and the programs and the exposure. It puts it in a different category compared to other universities in Egypt. So I got a very nice scholarship in the American University in Cairo. I studied for 5 years construction engineering and management, when I graduated from the American University in Cairo, I worked for around 5 years in Egypt, and then again, with the dream of going outside and exploring more options, I had the opportunity to work in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, for around 6 years, and that was a very good part of my career and my life in general. Very good exposures, kind of luxury life for an engineer working in the Gulf area. Very good salary, and then for social reasons, not for economical reasons, my wife and I decided to go back to Egypt in 2010. It was mainly, I mean, we had enough money at that time. We didn't care really about money and the income. We had good savings. We decided that we want our kids to be closer to their big family, and get them back into the loop of our both families, from my side and my wife's side. So we went back to Egypt 2010. I worked for 2 years there. During those 2 years, this revolution, we call it revolution or uprising, happened in 2011, January 2011. And that was a big change in, we thought it will be a big change in our life at that time. But we were deceived by the army. And we didn't know this until later on. After the uprising, I got, regarding my education, during those 6 years of working in Dubai, I got a chance to do my MBA, Masters of Business Administration. So I spent around 3 years working on this while I was working. So it was like a part-time study. So I finished this in 3 years in 2000. Actually, I finished it after I came back to Egypt. So I completed that 2011, and then 2012 I received a call from a professor in Purdue asking for a research assistant and a teaching assistant on a project that is funded by Qatar. Qatar, it's a state in the Gulf area, and the requirement was somebody with construction experience and who can speak Arabic and English at the same time. I mean, has bilingual or can have communication in both languages, and I mean, that was a call for doing the PhD, basically PhD in Purdue, and at the same time working on a research project that is funded by Qatar. So I did this for 2.5 years, from 2012 to summer 2014, and I finished my PhD in 2014 from Purdue University in civil engineering with a specialization in construction engineering and management. And that's basically the journey in that's my education, the journey in education, whether bachelor, master, or PhD. Yeah.
So speaking more, aside from academic education, a little bit about religious education.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go back to how then religion and Islam shaped your family practices when you were younger, and how you learned about Islam?
Well, I was born as a Muslim. There is no very accurate statistics about the percentage of Muslims in Egypt, but my expectation would be something between 90 and 95%, and the rest are Christians. So majority of people were Muslims in Egypt, and I was born as a Muslim, and we were practicing Islam. My father and mother, they were praying regularly 5 times a day, fasting Ramadan, doing the zakah, and they went to the al-Hajj pilgrimage, and they were I would say they were good practicing Muslims, trying to adhere to the Islamic I would say guidance as much as they can. And I learned Islam from them, mainly from my schools, elementary and middle schools. We used to have classes in Islam, and I do remember that in my, I would say, when I started the high school, like first year of the high school, I got more interested in knowing more about Islam. So I think that this is the time where when I started looking more into what Islam means in my life, and whether this is something that represents the true, I would say, relationship between God and a human being. I do remember that at that time I started reading more, practicing more, going to the mosque maybe more regularly. And that stayed with me for a couple of years, for some years. I also remember very well that when I started looking or thinking about why I am Muslim, I have challenged my belief. When I say challenged my belief, I stopped once and I said, what if Islam is not a message from God? And I remember that I started from scratch, looking into the idea of whether God exists or no, and that took me some time to evaluate or to think about two options: God exists and God does not exist. I couldn't find a third option. That's maybe some other people will find a third option, but I couldn't find a third option. And I had to choose between two things: whether I will believe that God exists or there is no creator and there is no God. And I think I spent some good time thinking about this, and I reached a conclusion that God must exist. That's according to what I found again during my research. It was mainly mental research, not like academic research. And after this, I looked into the idea why would there be prophets, and whether Muhammad could be a prophet, and why is that true? And I spent good time studying and analyzing this, and I think I reached to a conclusion that I should adhere to Islam. This happened twice in my life. Once, like after 1 or 2 years of that period, when I said I started being more interested in Islam. So that would be at the end of the high school, and another time when I traveled to Dubai, like maybe 4 or 5 years, no, 10 years later than this. So it happened twice in my life that I would say I would describe it as challenging my belief. Mhm.
So, then speaking more about your family just a little bit when you were growing up, what would you say were some of the most important lessons that you learned from them?
Uh,
And even some that you use with your own family, with your kids?
yeah. Well, raising kids honestly to adhere to good morals is not an easy thing. Uh, if you wanna think about this, it's changing. It's not necessarily the behavior, but the mentality, because behavior will change based on the situation that they are in, and changing something from inside is not a straightforward thing. So I think honestly, I think the mercy and the love and mercy and respect are the big factors in getting someone to to think about uh, to think about doing something good or right. That's my I when you asked me now, I went back into the memory, and I remember my mother, especially my mom. I mean, and that's very common. Mothers usually offer more love and mercy, and and they are easier to deal with. So I do remember that seeing this at home could affect me, because when you love someone, especially at a young age, you wanna please that person, and you want to follow that person because you think he's a good person. Um, so I do remember that these kind of feelings, when I felt them in my young age, they affected my behaviors. But of course, but of course, when I grew up, uh, I had to be more independent in developing my own ideas. And as I said, I went ahead and read more, and asked questions and challenged what I believe in. Um, and because they are educated. My mom and father, they are educated, both of them, but maybe they did not have all the answers to my questions, and this is why I had to go out and search for answers. um, but yes, I would say that values like love, mercy, and respect can I would love to do this with my kids. I remember very well when I get angry or mad about especially my first one, because it's like the trial the trial one. I have 4 boys and 1 girl, and the first one, because he was like the trial. I remember that I got mad at him a couple of times, and that's wrong. That's wrong. I stopped this. I stopped this later on when I found out that this is wrong, because he's a child and he needs more of mercy, love, and respect, uh, than just forcing him to do something. So yeah, I think I have to adhere to these values more and try to practice them more. Yeah.
So with that, with your current family, could you tell me when you got married and how you met your wife?
Yeah. Well, I was working in 2001. That's 2 years. 2 years after my graduation from the American University in Cairo. Because when I graduate from AUC, we call it the AUC. I went to I worked for around 6 months, and then I went to the army. That was like an obligatory. It's a service. If you have a boy brother in Egypt, and your health is okay, then you have to pay that price, which is 1 year of service in the army. So, but I was lucky because in the army service, because I worked as a civil engineer. So I designed and I built buildings for the army. So it was good experience for me. So when I finished that, I started working again in a company, and one of my friends, he was married, and they introduced my wife to me. So they introduced my wife to me in beginning 2001. We met a couple of times, and I remember meeting her with her family, her mom, her sister, and I liked her, and I think she liked me maybe, and we started having a good conversation, developing some sort of understanding why we want to marry, what are our objectives in life, and I think each one of us tested the other whether these objectives are in alignment with my or her objectives or no. That took a couple of months, I think, and then we started visiting them as a family, and things developed from there. Yeah.
So what year did you get married?
Well, we were engaged in beginning 2001, and we got married December 2001, 13 December 2001. That was our wedding day.
So then more about your kids. Could you tell me their ages and their names?
Yeah. Abdul Rahman. I have 4 boys and 1 girl. Abdul Rahman, we call him Bidu. He's 14 years old, now in the 8th grade. He's a nice kid. He says he's a popular kid in the school. I don't know why, but he's saying he likes to play soccer, and he's very good in social life. So he gets along with people in a very easy way. It's a big advantage in Bidu. Nuruddin, the second, he's 11, and Nuruddin is his big advantage, or something big in his life, is he's good in school. He likes again to study the school materials, and he likes to play soccer and basketball as well. And third one is Sulaiman, like King Solomon. We named him after King Solomon, but in Arabic we call him Sulaiman, which is a bit different than Solomon. But it's the same personality, the same character. And Solomon, 6.5 years old, 1st grade now, and he's a very nice and lovely kid, I would say. Very nice, very lovely. He gets along with people, but he's lately complaining about not getting enough attention from his friends. So we agreed that he has to work more on this, and he said he will. So that's the third one. Fourth one is Adam. He is 4 years old, and Adam, we are very excited to send him to the KG next year, because we speak Arabic in the house. We tried, me and my wife. Of course, the other kids, they speak English mainly, but me and my wife, because we are used to Arabic more, and we want them to remember Arabic, so we speak Arabic. So far, Adam is like, he's not perfect in English. He's 4 years. He's not perfect in English. and he's not any way near to be perfect to being perfect in Arabic. So he's in between. We had gone through this with the Sulaiman, and he passed this. So he's good now in at least in the English language. So we're excited that Adam goes to school next year, so that we see this. Hopefully, we see the same transition. And then Sarah, our princess, our young one, she's 2 years old, and she makes sure that the house is very messy. I would say it's everything. I keep every night. I look for my charger, mobile charger, and it's in a different place. Every night, there is no exception. So that's amazing. How can she be persistent? I mean, how can she have this consistency in that activity every night?
So could you tell me a little bit about what countries were your kids born in, and how was that move when they were born?
Yeah, very good. That's the three of them were born in Egypt. The first one was born in Egypt because we were living in Egypt. The second and the third, they were born in Egypt, but we were living in Dubai. So we were living in Dubai, but when my wife got pregnant, and we wanted her to deliver with her mom and among her family. So before delivery, she used to travel for the second and the third one. And the fourth and fifth one, they were born here in USA when we moved. Now, the first one, again, he's the trial one. He struggled. I would say we moved a lot from Egypt to Dubai, and in Dubai, we moved our house. We moved to another house maybe once. Once. So we changed the house twice. In two houses, and then we went back to Egypt, and then to Qatar, and then to USA. So he changed schools a lot, which affected his his academic. It affected his academic performance, Bidu, but for some reason he was able to make use of this in having a very good social life. So he's open to all people. He socializes with people easy, maybe because he met a lot of people, maybe. So it affected him, I think, academically, negatively, and positively in the social area. The others, they were not affected that much because they came. All of them were started most of their education years here in USA.
So with that, when you guys were in Egypt in 2011 for the uprising, did that affect your kids at all?
I remember that Bidu attended some of the demonstrations against Mubarak. So he went to the street. I was in the street against Mubarak for sure. And most educated people, even if we were not affected, and as I said, I was financially okay, but we felt that it's unfair, and so many people were struggling. So I was in the streets, and my wife went to the street, and Bidu was also excited about this. So he joined us in demonstrations against Mubarak, and I think it had some sort of impact on his personality. So I think he gets the idea now that you have to stand with justice somehow, and you should not be very negative or passive when it comes to causes like this.
Yeah, so with that, with your family coming to America, what were your first impressions? Actually, going back a little bit, so while you were in Egypt and not in America, what did you think of America?
I didn't know much about America, honestly, but America and Europe, or most of Europe, like the Western countries of Europe, our idea in general is that these are developed countries. They are somehow rich because of resources, but also technologically advanced. And when I grew up more, when I became after graduation, after my bachelor degree, I started feeling the difference in like in free democracy. There is no democracy in our countries, and there is democracy here. So these were the ideas, that they are developed countries, nice countries to live in, beautiful countries in many aspects, and they have democracy, which means that you can choose, or you can actually work on choosing the leaders that you want. That's a very big thing in Egypt and other countries. The feeling that you do not have the option to choose who represents you is a very bad feeling. I know when I came here, I got to know that it's not a perfect democracy, because there are so many factors affecting it, but at least there is democracy, and it could be better, but at least you have the infrastructure. The USA has the infrastructure to have a sort of working democracy, which is not there in our countries at all, because of the rule, or because of the regimes, military regimes. They don't believe in democracy, really. They just don't believe in it.
So I know when you came to America, coming to Purdue through Qatar, what was the visa process like for coming to America?
It was a very straightforward kind of visa or immigration process for me. It wasn't in the beginning. It wasn't an immigration step. It was a studying step. And as I said, I left Egypt in 2012 after having the uprising, and we were having big hopes in Egypt that things will go back to the right track. So when I left in end of 2012, it was on something called F1 visa, which is the student visa. So I got my document. When I got approved by Purdue, and I got the offer from Purdue, I got a document that I took to the embassy in Qatar. The starting process was in Egypt, but I finished it in Qatar, because I started working in Qatar as part of this project. So I took these documents, and I got what's called the F1 visa, student visa. And then when I came here, after I finished my degree in 2004, I got a job here, a job offer from here, Ball State University, and that when I got this offer, the F1 visa was changed to what we call OPT. That's like training period, extended training period, and then after the OPT, they applied for a working visa. A working permit, and after the working permit, I got the green card, what they call the green card, or permanent residency. And this is the status that I am on now for the last 2 years. It's a green card, permanent residency. I can go and come back. It should change to a passport in 5 years from the issuance of the green card, or at least that's my understanding of the process. Yeah.
So speaking more about the immigration process, did you have any hopes to go back to Egypt? Because I know you said that you were hopeful it was going to get better.
Yeah. When we left 2012, my wife and I were thinking of finishing the PhD and coming back to Egypt, with the hope that things will be better in Egypt. But as I said, in 2013, and that was a big incident in Egypt's life, I think. We found out that the army deceived everyone in Egypt, and the ousting of Hosni Mubarak was just a fake story, or they just responded to the calls of people in the streets. They were forced to do this, and they ran elections, parliamentary, like representatives for the people in the parliament, and they ran presidency elections. That was, I can say, and everybody is saying this, that was the first democratic elections in the life of in the history of Egypt, I would say. That's the first time that Egyptian people could select or could elect a president in a free democratic election. That was in beginning 2013. We were very happy. We were following this, and with all the problems we had hopes that things can be on the right track. But unfortunately, the military people they started a military coup in June 2013, and they ousted Mohammed Morsi. He was the first freely elected president in the recent history of Egypt. And the military people, unfortunately, that's very unfortunate that they killed the people, the supporters of Morsi. They had like a sit-in in a place called Rab'a, and they killed couple of hundreds. That's a couple of hundreds in the streets, and they put in prison probably close to 40 or 50,000 people. Most of them are still in the prison right now, including the president, the elected president himself. Mohammed Morsi is in jail or in the prison right now for the last 5 years or 4.5 years. So that changed a lot of things. We honestly, after having some hopes, we were very frustrated and depressed here when we were here in USA and following what's happening in Egypt, and things got worse and worse after this economically, and unfortunately we went back to an era that is even much worse than Mubarak's era. Mubarak had some strategies to release the pressure somehow, let people talk, let people oppose him. Now there is no real opposition in Egypt. So when we found out this, we decided that we should continue here and explore our options here. And big factor for us was the education for our kids. Definitely the system here offers better education in the elementary, middle schools and high schools. And the hopes that we had in Egypt that things will go back on the right track vanished somehow. And so far we don't see light at the end of the tunnel as long as the military people are in power.
Could you remind me, is there any single person who's currently in power, or is it just?
Yeah, the guy who led the military coup. His name is Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. He led the military coup because he was the defense. He was the minister of defense, the secretary of defense, or we call him in Egypt minister of defense. So he was the head of the army. He led the military coup, and he went for another fake election and became the president. And there is something coming now in the March, I think in the month of March or April, another election after 4 years. And guess what? There is no one who is running against him. They had to make a story. They had to buy someone. They had to literally buy someone who is a supporter of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. His name was Mustafa. He's not a prominent figure, and he's not an opposition to the president. But they reached out to him, and they said, why don't you run after him against al-Sisi, because it would be very embarrassing if he runs on his own. So that's coming very soon in March or April. Yeah.
So now, shifting more towards America, could you tell me about, so when you first came to Purdue, what were your first impressions of Indiana, of America, West Lafayette?
Well, I loved it. I came to West Lafayette when we moved to USA. We were new to USA in general. I didn't know that there are other states that are very different than Indiana. So all the exposure that I had was West Lafayette and Indiana, and it was okay. It was a very different life than what I had in Egypt and Dubai. There was a lot of different learning curves for me at different areas. So I did like the life in West Lafayette. It's a college city, and it's a nice city to live in. I liked also in Indiana that people are in general they are conservatives. So there is nothing that I can feel risky about, or threats uh, from certain areas of the community. So I think we were okay. We liked it, and it was very similar to the life we had when we moved from West Lafayette to Fishers. We moved to when I accepted the offer in 2014. We thought of living here in Muncie, but unfortunately, we could not find a place to for our kids in Burris School, and uh, we were not sure if we can get the kids in the other schools. We did not know much about them, and we heard that the school system in Hamilton, where we live now, Fishers, is better. So we took a decision that we will live there until things here get on track again.
So then, I know you were a student at Purdue and then a professor at Ball State, but could you kind of compare the two universities, your experiences there?
Yeah, I mean, Purdue is definitely a bigger. I mean, it's a larger, more research-oriented institute. They have areas that are not in Ball State. Ball State is more, I would say, art-oriented, liberal education-oriented. In Purdue, it's mainly known for engineering education, agriculture, but again, it's agriculture there is more into it's close to the engineering field as well. So engineering, agriculture, they have pharmacy school. So there is more of engineering and science areas in Purdue. While in here in Ball State, we have more majors that are oriented to liberal education and art education. And that's a big difference, of course, that someone from the engineering background can see. Yeah.
So then, when you first came to America, how would you say that you identified, either like ethnically, nationality-wise, or religious-wise? Would you say like I'm a Muslim? Would you say I'm Egyptian, an American Muslim?
Well, I identified myself as an Egyptian person. Um, and in some contexts, I would introduce myself as a Muslim, especially when I'm in a meeting that is related to the Islamic centers that I got involved in, like the Islamic Center of Muncie or the Al-Huda Foundation in Fishers. So in meetings related to those, yes, I would of course associate myself with the religion of Islam.
Yeah. So speaking about those involvements, moving to Fishers, so Al-Huda was a very big masjid. Could you tell me about your involvement with them, and then also your involvement with the Muncie Islamic Center?
Yeah. I guess my involvement in the Al-Huda Foundation is basically going to prayers there, the regular prayers, maybe once a day or maybe once every 2 days, depending on my schedule. So the Muslims in general, they have 5 prayers every day, and it's recommended if you can go to pray in the masjid, you go to pray in the masjid. If you have the time and you can go, you go. So maybe once every day or once every 2 days, I would visit Fisher's Al-Huda Foundation. The other thing that I got involved in recently was working on the construction committee. They are trying to build a new like expansion building for the existing building right now. And because of my background in construction engineering, they asked me to be in the construction committee. So that's another involvement that I have there. Well, the Islamic Center of Muncie, because I work here, so again, I go to the Jum'ah prayer here every week. If I have time to go to one prayer or two every week, I would go. But the masjid here or the Islamic Center here is not open for prayer. It's open, you can go, but there is no regular prayers every prayer of those 5 times. So if I have the time and it's something that I find people praying there, I may join them. But the thing that made me, or that the other involvement that I have there is that I'm the advisor of the Islamic or the Muslim Student Association here, the student Muslim Student Association, and it's by the constitution of the Islamic Center of Muncie that the advisor of the MSA here in Ball State is a member of the executive committee there. So they kind of make it like collaboration. They want to have collaboration between the people in Ball State and the people in the Islamic Center of Muncie. And the reason is basically because it's a very small community. So they want people to work together.
So, speaking about the smallness of this community, could you compare the Muncie Muslim community with the Al-Huda?
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's a big community there in Al-Huda Foundation. They have support from a lot of professionals, doctors and physicians and other people who can financially support the institute there, and their activities, their meetings are usually attended by a big number of people. Like for example, the annual the big two annual celebrations, Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, they are usually attended by a couple of thousand people, like 2 to 3 thousand. They rent Incrediblex in Indianapolis, and these are usually big events. While here in Muncie, it's a very, very small community. It's very few families who are supporting the Islamic Center. And of course, when I say very small, I'm comparing Al-Huda Foundation to the Islamic Center here of Muncie. So size is a big difference for sure.
Yeah. With that said, the Muncie Muslim community is known for its diversity around the city. So could you tell me about your personal relationship with fellow Muslims who are of diverse races and ethnicities, or even different sects of Islam?
Well, my exposure, of course, in the context of Masjid, because all are Muslims and praying together. The notion of ethnicities and races, it kind of dissolve. You should not be seeing this in a prayer area or in a worshipping area. But of course, everyone is identified by his or is known by his background, where is he or she is coming from. So I enjoyed the exposure and the relationship with the people from Afghanistan. There is a nice active family here, Bahrami family. So I really enjoy dealing with them. Other people from convert Muslims, like Rich McKinney. I guess Rich McKinney. He was actually the president of the Islamic Center, and we had a lot of meetings together. He's a very nice person. And other people from the area, the Asian Muslim communities, like Pakistani or Indians or Albanians. So that's another like ethnicity, or there is some good background there. And the other group is the African American community or sub community. There is an active African American subgroup in the Muslim community there in the Islamic Center of Muncie, and they regularly attend the prayers, and they are active in the masjid.
Could you elaborate on any relationship between the immigrant populations and the African American Muslim population in Muncie?
Well, I think it's a smooth relationship. One thing here in the African American Muslims, I think they are converts. They were not. I think they are converts. They were not born as Muslims. So when you are a convert, you get this feeling that the people who are coming from the Middle East or the Muslim majority countries, they know more than you, or they have more exposure to Islam. So what I noticed is that the African American people, they show respect to that kind of knowledge, to the people who are coming from Muslim majority countries. and they deal with those immigrants based on this. They want to know more about Islam from them. They respect their knowledge. Um, yeah, this is the feelings that I got. This is what I could see in that relationship between immigrants and the African American community.
Yeah, so with that said, what would you say are some of the greatest strengths of this Muncie community?
Well, actually, being a small community, it could be a strength because you are closer to the other members of the community. You talk to each other more. You support each other more, and you kind of you care for the other people, for the other members of the community. When it gets bigger, like Al-Huda Foundation, you get that feeling sometimes that they are just scattered. They are not they are not close to each other, and it's harder. It's much harder to organize a meeting for the community there. As I said, the only two gatherings that can have all the community in are those two, Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Other than this, it's hard to get the community in a big meeting. I would say it's practically impossible to have it on a regular basis.
So within the 4 years that you've been involved with the Muncie Muslim community, how has your connection changed over time, if it has at all?
Well, I started when I moved here. I started, like as I said, praying the al-Jum'ah prayer, introducing myself to the members of the community here, and yeah, one thing about Islamic Center here is that families actually, some of the families that were here when I moved, they actually left Muncie. They left. Couple of them left to Fishers, and couple left out of the state. So that affected also the size a little bit here of the Islamic community. But when I moved here, I started praying normal like Jum'ah prayer, introducing myself to the members, and then I think in the second year they talked to me about being the advisor of the MSA here, and I accepted because it's something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in supporting students who would like to have activities to get people to know more about Islam and so on. So I think this is where I got more involved because I started sitting in the executive committee meetings, and I started participating with them in taking decisions for the different activities, different like events that they have. One very recent that got me more engaged in the Islamic community is an immersive learning project. I'm doing an immersive learning project now to put solar panels on the roof of the Islamic Community Center. One person, he's not actually one of the Muslim community members. He donated $10,000 to the Islamic community with a condition that they use this for getting solar panels on the roof. And they reached out to me because of my background in construction and engineering, and I teach also an electrical class here, so I have some background on solar panels. So I started an immersive learning project. 10 students are working with me now to hopefully get this done by the end of the semester. Yeah, it's a very good kind of collaboration between Ball State and the Islamic community. The board there and the Islamic community there, they were very excited having students learning from this experience. They are very interested in getting students to learn what solar panels are and participate in this project. So that got me very engaged again in the last maybe, I would say 6-7 months. Yeah.
Yeah, so more with that involvement. Speaking of Muslim student associations, were you at all involved with the Purdue Muslim Student Association?
I attended a couple of their meetings, but I was not an active member there. But I know, of course, it's a bigger organization there because of the number of of students. They are active. So because they are active, I attended a couple of their meetings and the lectures they organized. But I was not a member or an active member there.
Yeah. So then, being a board member of the Islamic Center as the advisor, what would you say is your sense of leadership within the Islamic Center of Muncie, such as how are some decisions made or disagreements addressed?
Very good question. uh, it's a small community. I would say that the decision making in a small community like this can be limited to the people who really are very invested in the Islamic Center. There are two levels of decision making. One that is the level of organizing activities and events and taking care of the daily and weekly and monthly operations of the Islamic Center, and that is taken care by the executive board, which is I think around 6 or 7 members, and they are elected. There is election, so you get those 6 people or 7 people elected, and they run the operation of the building. There is another layer of decision making, which is taken by the board of trustees. So there is a board of trustees for the Islamic Center, and I think they take decisions when it comes to major changes or investments or major financial issues that are related to the Islamic Center of Muncie. So yeah, that's the kind of leadership they have, and I think it's going smooth. There are no conflicts or disputes that I can see. Again, that's my exposure. Maybe there are things that I don't know, but at least this is what I can see.
So actually, speaking of elections, in 2017, members of the Islamic Center of Muncie elected Bibi Barani as their first woman president.
Mm-hmm.
What is your response to this?
I was very happy. I was very happy that the Muslim community are open-minded enough and uh, opposite to what many Americans would think about Muslims, that they are against freedom of women and having women involved in leadership roles. I think that was a very good example that the Islamic Center of Muncie has given to the general community, that that the woman in Islam, or any woman in Islam, is actually perceived in a very positive way, and their roles, they can take leadership roles as Sister Bibi is doing now, and they can add a value to any society they are in. So I was very happy that this step was taken, and she's very active. She's a good leader. She's a good leader. She knows the people, and she can work on resources, like talk to people to be good resources to the community, and this is what you need from a leader in an organization like this, to motivate people to be active members, and be part of that organization. Yeah.
So, moving away a little bit from the Muncie community and more about your personal life, how would you characterize your own practice of Islam?
Um, I think, as I said, because at one point of my life, I started digging deep and reading more about Islam. I think I would say that um, I like to be religious. This is, but it's not always an easy thing. Um, Being a religious person means that you have to adhere and to abide by every rule of Islam and every regulation and every uh, guide, guiding points of Islam. And I would say I'm trying, but it's not that I would love to see myself in. Like, that's not the level that I would like to see myself in. Yeah.
So, speaking of that difficulty, are there any ways when you came to America that you had to improvise or adapt any of your practices, such as being a professor, praying 5 times a day, eating halal?
Yeah, yeah. Two things here. Eating halal. We don't, in Islam. We do not eat pork or ham or bacon, and especially bacon. That's a very tricky one, because in many cases you go to restaurants, even here in the restaurant here in the retreat. You go and pick a plate or a dish, and then there is nothing written that it has bacon, and then I find out that it has bacon, and that's sometimes a bit frustrating because you need to describe what's in the meal or in the dish so that people are aware. Of course, that's the case in most situations, but it's something that I have to check before I eat that the food does not include pork or bacon or ham. So that's one thing. The other thing is praying in the public areas. In Egypt and the countries that I lived in before, of course, it's there is no problem praying in the public areas. Here, because our prayer has certain moves, specific moves, and you should not be looking around. You should be looking in the area where you pray. Sometimes, if I have to do it in the public, I get a feeling that people are not very comfortable with this. So yes, I took a decision that I will try to avoid this as much as I can. If because we have limited times for every prayer in the day. So if I don't have to pray in the public, I will not pray in the public. I will keep it until I go home or pray in my office. So that's something else that I had to adapt when I moved here in USA.
Yeah. So speaking a little bit to that discomfort from other people, coming to America, have you ever faced any discrimination based on either being Egyptian or being Muslim?
I think I'm fortunate enough, and maybe because when I came here in USA, I joined Purdue and then Ball State University, and in both cases, I'm actually dealing with highly educated people, open minds, and I would say open hearts as well. The students that I deal with on daily basis, the professors, the administration, the staff here, they are very open-minded. I don't think they have any issues with the racism or racial discrimination issues. So I have not been through a situation where I can say that I've been discriminated against or I had issues with racial discrimination. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, is there anything distinctive that you would say you or your family bring to the Muslim community in Muncie or even in Fishers?
Well, I think my background in construction engineering, uh, in the case of Al-Huda Foundation, I think I'm trying to add some value because of being involved in that construction committee. And here, this last project of the solar panels also can give me some. I think it can add some value. Um, Other than this, when you are in a community and you just show that you care for the community in a context like a religious community like this or a minority like this, that could be something that is really needed. Just to show that you care for people and you are supportive. You support them in their activities in what they want to do. That takes me to the same concept of love, mercy, and respect. If you show this to people, that itself is something that can add value.
Yeah, so a little more broadly about that. Are there any certain teachers of Islam who you would say are important guides for you, either when you were growing up or now?
Well, there are many, of course. There are many names that I've read books written by many scholars. I remember one scholar, or I think I read a couple of his books, and he is a very renowned one. His name is Al-Qaradawi, Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, and he cannot go back to Egypt now. He's an Egyptian one. He's an Egyptian scholar, but he lives now in Qatar because the Egyptian government is considering him as I think a terrorist or something like this. They play a lot with the term terrorists or terrorism to scare people of moderate scholars or scare people scare anyone from opposition in general. If you are an opposition, then most likely you will be labeled that you are either extremist or someone who wants to make harm to the state of Egypt. So Al-Qaradawi, I think, is one scholar that is classified like this. There are others, of course. I'm not a follower of a certain scholar. I like to be, again, open-minded to all the ideas. One scholar that I recently started listening to or reading to basically listening to his lectures. His name is Adnan Ibrahim. He lives in Switzerland, I think, or Sweden, one of those two countries, and he has very, I would say, liberal views of Islam, and he is very knowledgeable, and he can, I would say, reevaluate a lot of things that we have been learning about Islam for a long time, and some of them could be misconceptions, and some of these misconceptions could have led to disasters or problems in the Muslim majority countries. So I think he has a very open mind to the extent, and a lot of knowledge to the extent that he can properly reevaluate a lot of these misconceptions.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of misconceptions,
Yeah.
there's usually the word jihad gets
Yeah.
thrown a lot as something that's misunderstood. How important is the concept of jihad for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, jihad is just a term that has a meaning in the Arabic language, and it means resistance and doing extra effort to achieve a certain objective. And it can be a very personal thing when you resist your desire to do a bad thing. Like everyone can have some desires to do a sin or a bad thing. When you practice jihad against yourself, that means that you are trying to resist that desire to do the bad thing. And that's not only the only level of jihad. There is jihad at a level of a community or a state when they resist colonization, when they resist a country that is trying to invade them. That's a kind of jihad, because they have to protect themselves. They have to resist the evil powers that are trying to attack them or something. So that's another level of jihad that is sometimes required in some areas. And again, it's an Arabic term that can be that there are so many similar terms in the Western, like I would say, the Western civilization, like USA and Europe, they are using. USA here is utilizing their army to defend ideas that they think that they think true, and they use their armies to resist what they think as threat to the country here and to the people of USA. If you think about this, that's a kind of jihad that USA is doing. So it's a term that is generic in the Arabic language. It can be on a personal level, or it can be on a community or a state level. Unfortunately, there is a misconception about jihad because of the following. Recently, because of oppression, because of suppression, because of autocracy in our Middle East countries, we got a lot of extremist ideas. And what happens basically is that certain groups of people, when they are deprived of all rights of practicing democracy or practicing free life, and their economy is deteriorating, their social life is deteriorating, they feel suppressed and oppressed, they think that they take this to an extreme, and they start practicing what they call jihad against their own people. And they start calling other people in that community like non-Muslims or kafir or people who are going astray. So this is a very complicated area, because unfortunately, it comes to a level where there is extremist ideologies that try to utilize the word of jihad to and violence to change certain situations in their communities. And this is what's happening in areas like Syria, Iraq. Of course, you hear about Daesh or ISIS. Um, it's a very complicated and they situation, and they use this term as jihad in a very negative way. I would say that the term jihad is hijacked by those people, and this is why there is a lot of misconception. And I understand why people have this misconception about the term jihad.
So on the opposite end a little bit, what would you say is the heart of Islam for you?
The heart of Islam is freedom. That's very clear. It was not clear, by the way, in the beginning of. I mean, when I was young, but when I grew up more, I think God created the people to be free to choose. And if you are not free to choose your religion, to choose your the way that you want to practice your religion, to choose your leaders, to choose your style of life. If you are deprived of those, and things are imposed on you, that's not the heart of Islam. That's not Islam that I know.
So overall, how would you describe your experience living in Muncie? Or not living in Muncie, but in Muncie?
Yeah, Muncie is a nice city, but it needs some work. As a community here, I think the community in general needs to get together and think of a strategy for having a better Muncie, let's say. What happened in the school district recently will have some effect for some time, and this is and I was honestly before knowing the news of Ball State taking over the district here, I was actually thinking of the same thing. I was thinking, why wouldn't Ball State University take over the district here or the school district here? Because whatever we do, I would say our reputation, the future of Muncie is tied to the future of the future of Ball State is tied to the future of Muncie, in so many aspects.
Yeah.
So it's a nice city, but it needs some work.
So speaking of the Muncie community, have you developed friendships, you would say, with non-Muslims?
Not much. I have to be honest with you. Not much, except in the area. I mean, the people who are on campus here, like colleagues from the department, from the college, people that I know in the administration. That's my circle. Other than this, I haven't yet made friends in the general community of Muncie, and that's mainly because maybe I'm living in Fishers. So I commute to Muncie. Yeah.
Do you ever talk about your practice of Islam with your friends or your neighbors at all?
If there is an opportunity, if there is a context, yes, I would. I'm very open I like actually talking about religions and ideas and deep. I love actually what the philosophy. I think the philosophy department, they organize something that they call big ideas, or like a seminar or get together meetings. I love actually when they do these things, and every time I plan to attend one of those, but I fail for some reason. So I'm planning to attend some of those because I am pro freedom of thoughts. I would like to listen to other people, how they think about God, how they think about the relationship with God, how they think about their own desires in life, their own needs in life. I'm very open about these things, and I have no problem expressing my feelings as well, especially when it comes to these big ideas. I call them big ideas because they really relate to the way you live. it impacts the way you live and the way you are taking your life, or the future of your life.
So with that, living a little bit about your family, I know you mentioned your siblings. Are they in America as well? Or where are they?
No, they are both in Egypt.
Both in Egypt.
Yes.
Okay. And your parents?
My father passed away in 2014. My mom she's still alive, and actually, she's the main reason why my sister, for example, is still in Egypt, and my brother as well. She's one of the main factors why they wanna stay there.
So then, a little bit back to the community. Would you say over the years of being in America, has your sense of belonging or even your family's sense of belonging changed at all?
Yeah, my third son, he calls himself American, although he's not yet. I mean, the fourth and fifth are American because they were born here. The third one, he's becoming a patriot. Like he likes to stand for the flag and to call himself American, and he likes the American culture. He's very much invested in this somehow. For us, we developed an idea here, and we got impressed by some of the ideas here of some of the scholars or some of the active Muslims here, who promote the idea of being a good Muslim, a good American Muslim. And I remember one of those guys. His name is Fadi Qaddura. He's right now the city controller, Indianapolis city controller. But he is very knowledgeable person. He makes the Friday speeches in Al-Huda Foundation every now and then, and he is excellent in promoting and explaining the idea of how to be a good American Muslim, how to be an added value to the American society. Since you as a person have taken a decision to live here as part of this community, as part of this country, you have to add value. And that's part of your Islam. He is explaining it in that context. You will not be a good Muslim until you add value to where you live. Because you have to work, you have to collaborate with other people, you have to participate in activities that add value, either socially, economically, or any other aspect to the society that you are living in. I love this concept. I love it, and my wife also is on the same page with me on this. She's very interested in exploring this more, and I think this is something that have changed us a lot. We never thought this way when we were in Egypt, because we were already blended in the community, right? We were Muslims living with the majority Muslims people. So we never thought of this. But when we came here, we are a minority, we look different, and our backgrounds are different. We speak a different language, or part of us speak a different language. So we had to develop this sense of belongingness. And I think it makes a lot of sense that if you decide to live in a certain country or a certain community, you have to be part of this and add value to where you live.
Yeah. Would you say that the term being an American Muslim characterizes your own self-understanding?
I'm trying to develop this. I moved here when I'm 35 years old. That's most of my life. So I would say that in the last 5 years things have changed, but I'm monitoring. I'm looking at my brain and my change, the things that are changing in my brain and in my mind right now, and it's interesting. It's interesting that I'm changing ideas. So describing myself as a Muslim, as an American Muslim, is developing inside my mind right now. I think it's much clearer in the minds of my sons, who are here and invested here and already with a lot of friends, American friends here. It's much easier for them. I'm still having backlog from my previous life. So that's changing right now.
Yeah. So actually, speaking about your previous life in Egypt, what would you say you miss most about your home country?
My mother, my mom, of course, uh, and the River Nile, of course. Uh, it's a it's a good country to live in, Egypt, and I wish things did not go in that direction. Mm, I don't believe in nationalism that much. I don't believe in borders that much. When I lived in Egypt, I loved Egypt because I had a lot of memories there, and I was okay living there, as I said, until those changes happened. When I lived in Dubai, I also loved living there for so many reasons. And when I came to here in USA, I also love being here and being part of this country. Um, and this is and it's just a personal thing. I don't believe that borders and nationalism should kill or should suppress the human part of our personalities. We are all humans, and wherever you are, you should be an added value to the community you are in. And I think, honestly, if people start thinking this way, so many things will be different in this world. Maybe this is a lot of utopian kind of thinking, but this is what I believe in.
Yeah, so actually speaking more to those political ideals, as a Muslim who arrived in the US just a few years ago, what ways have some national events, either in your home country or around just the world in general, affected you personally, or what have you seen?
I wanna highlight something here or talk about something that is that I, again that I have been thinking about a lot lately. Um, it's the immigration thing and getting newcomers blended into a society that is already running, and people are happy with what they have. Like here in USA, I mean, you American people here who moved probably 300 or 400 years to this part of the continent or USA right now, they have worked hard to establish a good working, I would say, system, infrastructure, country that is technologically developed, that is strong, that has good natural resources is a blessing, but they worked on these natural resources to make a good life for themselves. Now, when these people see other people coming to them like immigrants, there has to be I'm expecting there has to be mixed feelings. They can think of them as an added value, uh, adding to the economy, adding to what's happening in the society, and they can think of them as a threat to being a burden on their natural resources or their resources in general. So I cannot segregate or separate this, what's happening here, and the ideas that evolve about or revolve about around immigration, from what's happening in the other countries. In the other countries in the Middle East, like in Egypt and Libya and Syria and Iraq, what's happening there is actually causing people to leave the countries, to be immigrants. They wanna eat, basically. They wanna drink. They wanna have basic kind of basic needs. They are looking for basic needs, and some of them are looking for better chances, better education. You cannot separate these from each other. And what I'm really thinking, and this is the point that I would like to reach to, the policies and the what the governments of USA and other European countries, the decisions that they are making is affecting this whole dynamics. The decisions that they are making in the last, I would say, maybe century, decade, 7, 8, 10 decades, or 70, 80, 90 years, this is the main reason why people are leaving their countries and looking for a hope here. Unfortunately, there is some sort of support for dictatorships in our country, in the Muslim majority countries, and that should not be the case. That should not be the case. When you support a dictatorship because of a false notion in your I would say in your strategy or in your policy, when you do this, you expect immigration. You expect people to leave their countries and try to come to your country. So I think there has to be reconsideration of the way USA and other leading countries in the world look at things and what's happening in the Middle East and other countries.
Yeah.
They should reconsider this.
So speaking a little bit back to American history, I know you were engaged to your wife at the time, but do you remember any of the events of September 11th, 2001?
We were not engaged. That's 2001. Yeah, we were engaged, right? We were engaged, and that's during the engagement, right? And I remember I was still in my parents' house, and she was still in her parents' house because the wedding was end of 2001, right? So I do remember when I saw this that I expected the bad scenarios to happen to the Muslims, and that was true. That proved to be true. There was tragedies everywhere. It was a big tragedy, of course, in USA, but it was followed by even worse and more horrifying tragedies in the other countries, like in Afghanistan and Iraq. I think the 9/11 was a big change in the life of so many human beings on Earth. Yeah.
So, what events since 9/11 do you think have affected you or the Muslim community in general since then? So, such as the 2016 presidential election of Donald Trump.
Yeah, that was big. That was big. I think that was the biggest, I would say, event, because there is a lot of highlight on Muslims, especially when President Trump said that or proposed this travel ban, and during his campaign, he said it's for Muslim majority countries. Maybe it changed when he started being the president. I think it's changed to the better. It's not as bad as he was promoting for it during the campaign. But also a lot of highlights was on Islam and Muslims because of his language. I remember very well, very, very well, and that's a video on YouTube. He said, Islam hates us. And that's a very, very big statement. When a president or someone who's going to be a president says something that is completely wrong and dangerous like this, that was I remember this very well, and I thought it's not good to hear something like this, because Islam doesn't hate anyone, and it's basically a misconception. I wish President Trump reads more or listens more. I don't know if he can do this or no, but I wish he can listen and hear more from other people, so that he can change the misconception he has. I don't know if it's too late or no. I'm just hoping.
So as of 2018, right now, what are some of your perceptions of the United States?
From 2016 till now?
Just in general, like right now.
In general. Well, one perception, I did not expect that there could be racism still in the United States before I come. Again, my perception about the United States is that before I come, it's a good, good place to live in, beautiful, has a lot to offer, and there is democracy, there is freedom, and I honestly did not expect that I will come and see ideas related to racism or racism that is still going on. We have to face it. We have to face it. There is still racism in USA, and there is some sort of segregation between African Americans and white people. That's still going on. We have to face it, and it's a big issue. Of course, I don't think we have time to talk about this, but I'm a person, because maybe of my engineering background, I always like to go to the roots of explore the roots of any problem. I think this issue of racism needs more thinking, more reflection from everyone, so that we can deal with it in a realistic way. It's not about politics. It's not about money. It's not about. It's about deep things in the nature of human beings that needs some psychiatrists, maybe psychologists, people who understand human beings and the inner feelings of human beings to deal with them. Not an engineer, not a physician. I think we need more specialists who understand these things to look into racism and try to get to the roots of it.
So speaking actually towards the future, what are some of your hopes for you, for your family, for Muslims in America, and then even for Egypt? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, big question. For me and my family, we wish to proceed with a decent type of life, without any financial problems, getting my children to universities, good universities, Ball State or others, so that they can support themselves and be an added value. That's on a family basis. I would love to see them good people, good citizens, from different perspectives. For USA, I would love to see people living in a more peaceful way. There is a lot of negative feelings or hard feelings that you can see going on, especially when you look at politics. And I would love to see this stopping. And let me say something here. My personal advice is that we have to limit the involvement of rich people in the politics of the United States of America. This is my analysis. Everything is impacted, almost everything. Almost all politicians, they are impacted by the deep pocket people who seek their interests, and there has to be some way to stop this. And you know what? I think your generation, honestly, when I speak to young people, I think they are more capable of changing this. They are more open-minded. They have more open minds, open hearts, to the extent that I think they can do a change in the future. How can we, as a community or as a society or in USA, stop the interference of deep pockets or rich organizations in the politics? And that goes hand in hand with the control of the media, of course, because they control politics mainly through, or one big thing is through media and the pressure they put on the media. When a certain channel focus and gives a very long time covering a certain area, it's very clear that the people who are financing this channel or media channel, they want people to think about this certain area, which should not be the case. How can we free media? That's a big question. I don't have an answer to it. How can we make them free from influence? It's not easy. It's not easy. There needs to be a lot of work on this. But this is really what I want. This is what I want. What I hope for USA. And I have to tell you that if this happens in USA, I am more than sure that the people can select or can elect. I mean, most of the people are good, or I would say all of them. There are exceptions, but people want the good things to happen. If we can free politics and media from that influence, I think people can do the right elections. They will select the right people, and that will lead to a lot of changes. Again, maybe this is a lot of utopia in what I said, but you asked me about my hopes, right? So these are really my hopes, and you know what, I think that there are people who are working on this. There are people, grassroots people, open-minded youth people, and older people, but mainly young people who work on this.
Do you have any hopes for your home country, Egypt?
I hope one day we stop the military regime. Um, since 1952, after we stopped the kingdom in Egypt, or I mean, 1952, the military people took over Egypt, and since then, there is deterioration in every single aspect of the life of Egypt. If we can stop this and have democracy, um, I think things will change to the better from every aspect, and you will get less immigrants here in USA.
So, in closing, take a few moments to reflect. But what would you say is one event or story from your life that captures what it means to you to be a Muslim in America?
Hmm. Um, there is no one single story that comes to my mind. Could be small things. Um, one of them, by the way, is the panel that happened here last year, when I was invited to be one of the. Uh, it happened twice, actually, when I was invited as a Muslim to answer questions about Islam, uh, and that was something that's meaningful to me. It shows that people care, or people in the society that I live in, they want to know about the others. They want to melt the ice, which is something very positive. Honestly, that's very positive, very encouraging, that we have this open mind and open heart. uh, some conversations that I had with my students, when they asked me about my religion and how I practice, my normal students, construction management students, because sometimes we talk about general things. Those are nice, good moments for me. Again, it shows that we are open. The more we put ourselves in like closed boxes, the more fear we can have, because we normally, as human beings, fear from the unknown. And I think many Americans here, they fear from Muslims or Islam, because very simply it's unknown for them. So when we have these moments of openness, and people who are willing to know more and learn more about the others, this is what makes me feel safer. Yeah.
So, thank you, Sharif.
Thank
On
you,
behalf
Afra.
of the Virginia Ball Center Seminar, Muslims in Muncie, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me again. It was a pleasure, and I really appreciate the effort that you and Dr. Agnew, the team, and Dr. Agnew, you are doing. Again, it adds to the notion that there is hope in young people, and people in general, that they can be open to each other, they can learn more about each other, they can practice more love, mercy, and respect. And this is what it takes to be a good human being, happy human being. And I think this is our mission on earth, and this is we should be like this. I think so. I think that we should not cause any sufferings to each other.